I threw a total of around 25 innings that year. We ended up winning the ACC championship. So, going far in that was super helpful, and getting recognized. Everything was kind of out of my hands, just kind of see what teams have interest in me and keep reaching out. And then I decided to go play in the draft league, again, not really worrying about what teams are trying to reach out to me, just kind of letting everything, thaw out itself. It's a tough business. You don't really know, a lot of teams can tell you one thing and then, draft day, they're thinking other things, which is exactly what happened to me. So I'm glad that you prepared me for that. There's a lot of guys, who can throw mid-90s. There's a lot of guys who have my repertoire, but I think what separates me from other guys is my competitive aspect. Once I step out on the game mound, I kind of go into this different mode where it's me and the hitter. That's all that matters. I'm just going to compete my ass off to, make pitches, trust my guys to make plays. But I think my competitive spirit is really what separates me from other guys. I feel like I've kind of always had that mentality. When you warm up, you don't just go into throw just aimlessly warm up. You got to have a plan. All right, I have 2 righties and 1 lefty coming up. I'm going to, my fastball, I normally throw, I have a cut ride fastball. I've grown so much and learned what it really means to be a pitcher, not just a thrower.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Myokinetix Podcast. Today we have an awesome athlete and such a great success story that I need to share a story on our podcast, especially for the young listener, baseball player who have aspiration of playing at the league. And, he's just been a homegrown New Jersey athlete and, an inspiration to a lot of kids. And to be able to have him on the podcast share his story, I think it's going to pave the way for a lot of kids, a lot of coaches, and a lot of parents hearing his story out. So, who we have today is Jimmy Romano. He played at St. Joe's, won it with St. Joe's, went to Duke, crushed it at Duke, and now he's with the Cincinnati Reds. So, hey, Jimmy, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I know your story, I kind of sum it up in 30 seconds. So just give the listener a little bit about your background, because they can find your story on Wikipedia now because you're that guy. I was reading what they wrote about you on Wikipedia. So sum it up, talk about your background a little bit.
Yeah, so went to St. Joe's at high school, multi-sport athlete once I got to high school, and committed to Duke after my freshman year. Started sticking to baseball. High school went well. I was a two-way player in high school, so I was playing infield and pitching. Everything's going well. Junior year comes around. I tear my UCL. Rehab took me about 9 to 10 months to fully rehab, back playing on the field, pitching after, 10 months post-op. Came to Duke, mainly pitch most of my career at college. Got drafted after my junior year just recently, this past July, and now I pitch for the Cincinnati Reds. So,
dude, congratulations. So I want to get into it. Let's talk about what was the draft day experience like?
Oh gosh, draft day was super stressful. Lots of phone calls with my parents, my advisor. I had a couple teams reach out. Day one goes by, watching one of my buddies get drafted in the second round. Day two's on Monday. I wasn't really expecting to hear any early calls, potential late calls towards the 9th, 10th round. Day 2 passes, and day 3, last day, it's either you're getting picked up or you're going back to school. So, that's when the nerves start to kind of settle in, and, you don't really know what's going to happen. But, I was at home with my parents, with my family, and kind of just sat around the couch watching the cast on my computer, waiting for something. And, got the call from my advisor, and, everything happened. So it was a very, very, very stressful day. So,
dude, what was that like leading up to it? Right. So let's walk me through. You obviously did well at Duke. You guys made it to the tournament. And then after that, you play at the draft league, which is relatively new, right? This has got to be 2-3 years old.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. So,
relatively.
Go to the draft league, and then what's the conversation leading up to it? Were people just calling you, how many team interview? What was that interview process like? Just for the kids out there.
Yeah, I'll backtrack a little bit. I was 2-wing in college for my first 2 years, and then into my junior year fall. And then I realized that I'd have more of a career as just a pitcher and something I want to focus on. So I
Mhm.
started focus on just pitching after my junior fall. So my junior spring, it was solely just pitching. And I realized that, I have a lot of potential. I could really go far with this. I already have the arm for it. I got the strength. It's just more of the getting on a mound every week, every day, or, working on like specific things towards pitcher that I couldn't really do as a hitter as well.
Mhm.
And, I got connected with an advisor who's done a lot for me. He's really helped me a lot in January. And that's when I started to get like some interest from teams. Some teams have like reached out to my advisor, and I was like, I could really, go far with this. So started off the season pretty well. I don't think I gave up a run in my first 10, 11, 12 innings. I was up to 96 in February, 3 weeks into the season. And, I just, during season, the teams try not to really bother you that much. They
Mhm.
just kind of let you play. Because, there were teams in December that were like, hey, can you hop on a call real quick? We want to talk to you, see what kind of guy you are, see, how you feel about playing professional baseball. So in the spring, I wasn't necessarily worried so much about like all right, who's talking to me, who's reaching out.
Mhm.
It was more like, I'm just going to do my thing, throw, whatever happens, happens. That's why I have an advisor to handle that for me. If someone wants to reach out, they'll go through him. So,
Mhm.
you know, started throwing well. I threw a total of around 25 innings that year. We ended up winning the ACC championship. So, going far in that was super helpful, getting recognized. And then we ended up making a regional, played in Oklahoma, through my last 2 innings in a Blue Devils uniform, had 2 shutout innings, threw really well. And then after that, it was kind of, everything was kind of out of my hands, just kind of see what teams have interest in me and keep reaching out. And then I decided to go play in the draft league I got home, and then less than a week later, I drove out to Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and played for the Williamsport Crosscutters in the MLB draft league. And, threw probably around 7, 8 innings there, threw really well, had like 5 saves and 6 appearances. Again, not really worrying about like what teams are trying to reach out to me, just kind of like letting everything, thaw out itself. And then, got back, played for about a month, got back home, and 4 days later was the draft. Just kind of just talking to my advisor, see how he feels about things. And, he said, listen, it's a tough business. You don't really know, a lot of teams can tell you one thing, and then, draft day, you know, they're thinking other things, which is exactly what happened to me. So I'm glad that he
Mhm.
prepared me for that. But yeah, just
So,
then it just after that it was just a waiting game.
dude, what do you think? Like in your opinion, right? What is it about you that you think team draw towards rather than the arm strength and all of that stuff? Like your personality, like your motivation. What do you think draw
Yeah.
team towards you as a player?
Well, I there's a lot of guys, who can throw mid 90s. There's a lot of guys who have my repertoire, but I think what separates me from other guys is my competitive aspect. You know, you're out there, you're in the bullpen, you're warming up. You get some butterflies, you get nerves, but once I step out on the game mound, I kind of like go into like this different mode where it's me and
Mhm.
the hitter. That's all that matters. And I have 7 guys behind me. I got 1 guy in front of me, and I'm just going to compete my ass off to make pitches, trust my guys to make plays. But I think my competitive spirit is really what separates me from other guys.
Mm. Yeah, and I see that. I mean, it showed, man. Like every time you pitch, like your passion shine through. Every time you finish an inning.
Yeah.
What was I guess what in this past season, right? What was some situation where you're like, man, I really have you got yourself in any situation where like, man, I gotta find my way out of this, especially
Oh,
playing in the tournament and stuff.
absolutely. Yeah. There are going to be days where you don't have your best stuff. There's going to be days where you can't throw your fastball for a strike. There's going to be days you can't throw your slider for a strike. There's going to be days where your slider isn't even a slider. It's turned into a curveball, but I think that's my biggest strength is pitchability and being able to work around that. If something's not working, I'm going to dominate with this one thing that I do have. There's going to be situations where, a lot, honestly, throughout my college career as a pitcher, I was kind of like the firefighter where,
Mhm.
if a guy got into a tough situation where there's a man on second with 1 out or bases loaded, no outs or something like that, I was kind of like that go-to guy, like go in there, throw strikes, make pitches, force contact. If they needed to strike out, I had to work my way around that, pitch to get to that two-strike spot, and then execute a two-strike pitch or something like that. So,
Mhm.
I
How
mean,
do you
like that's
prepare
kind
your
of,
body? Like, how do you prepare yourself mentally to be that firefighter kind of guy?
yeah, I mean, I feel like I've kind of always had that mentality,
Mhm.
whether it's in high school, I started games. After I got surgery, I didn't throw, I only threw 5 innings in my senior year of high school after surgery, so I wasn't starting games. I was coming into games in tight situations. So I think that kind of just like helped me grow, helped me build on that. Just like, you know, it's funny because I always say like, well, listen, like these aren't my guys on base. Like it's the previous guy. So I'm not necessarily thinking about like, worry about giving those runs. I'm thinking about making pitches. I'm thinking about
Mhm.
helping the guy that just came out of the game. So it's just kind of like you're in the bullpen and you don't just go into your bullpen when you warm up. You don't just go into throw like just aimlessly like warm up. You got to have a plan. All right, I have 2 righties and 1 lefty coming up. I'm gonna, my fastball. I normally throw. I have a cut right fastball. I'm gonna work on throwing away to righties and into lefties, and work on my slider down and away to righties and down and into lefties. Like kind of like that plan. So this way you go out there and you're just like, all right, what am I going to do to this guy? It's like, no, you're already in that mentality of I'm going to throw this pitch right here. I'm going to throw this pitch over here. So I think a lot of it is growth and prior like experiences, like from my sophomore year pitching, like I've grown so much and learned what it really means to be a pitcher, not just a thrower. So,
Mhm. So,
yeah.
what's it like, dude? Like, obviously, after getting drafted and actually playing for an organization, how do you? What's the difference between like the caliber of athlete you're facing, you know, in the NCAA versus on the pro side?
Yeah. Um, I mean, just I feel like the level of competitiveness and like kind of care separates pro guys and NCAA guys. Because I mean, there's a lot of NCAA guys and college guys that like they have the talent, they have everything what it takes to be a professional baseball player, but it kind of comes down to like how committed are you to this is your job now. How committed are you to doing this for however long baseball takes you? But I would say some guys have more talent in like the pro side. Like you can tell like this guy's talented, this guy really has it. Because I mean, you also see some pro guys they're like kind of like a little lazy sometimes, kind of like half-assing stuff. But I mean, when you see like a legit pro guy, like he's has a routine. He goes in every day with a plan. He's like kind of like he's not messing around. So I mean, I think the biggest thing that separates college guys and pro guys is kind of like that mentality, of showing up to work every day and building your craft and executing. I think executing is one of the biggest differences from college guys and pro guys. Like these guys have a plan. These guys know what they want to do and they go out and do it. So
Mhm. Dude, it's funny you brought that up because like with all the pro athlete that we get to work with, I always look at guys who are gonna play 10 years versus guys that's gonna play like a couple years, right? And I think
yeah,
you touched it nail around the head is that their mentality of how they approach is so different. Like they're like super professional. Like they'll make sure
yeah,
that their routine's on tack. They make sure they come in, they get their work in, they get their rehab in, and then they're dressing like prior to what they're coming. Like and they're really in tune with their bodies. Like because they
yeah,
can tell like, oh, this feel kind of off. I gotta get this addressed right now rather than making things kind of stack up. So when you mentioned it before that around sophomore year you realize that you can actually make a career out of this, like what are some of the things you start flipping the switch on in your head and in your routine knowing that this is something you can actually pursue?
yeah. So I mean, being a two-way guy in college is not easy. You got to be
Mhm.
somewhere at all times. It's your hit it. It's you got to throw, and then it's like once you're done throwing, you got to run over and do base running. Once you're done with that, you got to go field and then hit. So I think I realized that just as a pitcher, you have so much more time to focus on your body and also the mental aspect of pitching. I never really got to do that as a hitter. I was always hitting or fielding or base running or whatever it was. But once I became a pitcher, I was like, all right, well, now I can focus on my mobility because that's what's going to get me to throw consistently hard. That's going to keep me healthy. If I'm just this big, stocked up, beefy guy, like, I'm going to be stiff all the times, and then injuries are going to come in. And then, it's just like, I'm not really going to have a long career, if I'm always just, hurt. So just being able to be a pitcher, I've realized that there's so much more to pitching than just throwing hard. There's pickoff moves, holding runners on, the mental game of pitching, arm mobility, arm care. There's so many things that people don't realize. I feel like the people who do realize it are able to take that next step and get to the next level because they're putting so much more care into those aspects of pitching other than besides just throwing hard and throwing good pitches. There's so much
Mhm.
more that goes in.
So, as obviously as an athlete, do you have like a mentor, another athlete that you look up to, or who is someone you aspire to be?
Oh man, I don't know if I really like look up to a single person. I mean I love watching pitcher like just compete. I mean, there's
Mhm.
so many people that just go out there and they don't always have their best stuff and they just compete, whatever it is. Whether they have to throw their sliders 70% of the time that day, or whether they have to throw their fastball 80% of the time because they don't have their all speed. I really enjoy the pitchers that just go out there just to ball out. They don't really care about who they're throwing to, what pitches they're throwing. They're just going to throw everything they have and they're going to throw it to the best of their ability.
Mhm. Yeah. So let's backtrack a little bit, man. So you mentioned high school, you got you tore your UCL, you got Thomas John surgery. So like, what was that whole experience like for you, being that young, right? And then
Yeah.
you have like a whole career path in front of you, and you have this thing that literally just like, oh snap, like something bad just happened. Now I gotta get rehab. Like, how do you cope with that, and how do you overcame that struggle?
Yes. I was committed to Duke at the time, junior year. This was actually in the middle of COVID, so June 2020. Um, my junior year high school season got canceled, so we're all sitting inside from February to May, not playing, and travel ball comes around. Go to our first tournament. We're in Tennessee, and I'm feeling great. I've been training. I haven't really been throwing live off of mound. I go out there my first outing and I'm like 93 as a 17-year-old. I'm just like, this is awesome. But also like,
Mhm.
I've never thrown this hard either. So it happened in game. It happened mid pitch. I didn't understand what happened because, I've never experienced it before and I was so young. And it was, it was very like in the moment I was like, oh my gosh, I think I did this. Like, I think I just tore my UCL. I don't know
Mhm.
fully, but I tell you, man, I all the signs that all the signs that I looked up on the internet were pointing towards UCL tear. So I was starting to freak out a little bit. Got my MRIs and it came back as a UCL tear. Um, it was pretty much fully torn, so I got reconstruction instead of repair. And then I got surgery maybe the week later, and I really didn't know how I was going to go down with my coaches. I talked to them; they were actually I mean, obviously nobody's happy that, you tear your
Mhm.
UCL, you have to get surgery, but I didn't realize that this is actually kind of like a blessing in disguise because I was able to get surgery while I was still young, you know, recover, get healthy, while I'm still young. I can go to school not having to kind of worry about, obviously you can re-tear it again, but like kind of going
Mhm.
back to school, like, a new ligament, a healthy ligament. So, I mean, just it kind of took time for me to realize like, like, okay, this happened. Now I just have to put everything I have into recovering. I gotta, just grind every day. And, it stinks because, like all my buddies on travel ball, they're still traveling. They're still going to Georgia. I mean, like, I'm not playing. So, I was like, you know what? Well, first off, let me backtrack. I got the graft. You can either have them in your wrist. Not everybody has them. This
Yep.
going on for this, but I didn't have them in either wrist, so they had to take them out of my hamstring. So that was a whole nother thing. So I had to go to PT for a month just to rehab my hamstring while in a full cast of my arm. But as soon as that was done, I was like, you know what? I can either sit in my bed and sulk and be sorry for myself that it happened, or I can go try and learn. So I actually traveled all summer with my travel team, just in the dugout, observing, watching baseball, trying to do everything I could from the bench to help my team win. And honestly, I've learned a lot about myself, the mentality of baseball. I've learned a lot of things, that there's a lot of things you can learn just by watching baseball too. A lot of things that go on in the game that, that can help your team win. So I was really able to learn kind of like the mental aspect and building my mentality, while still being hurt. But, I think that really helped me like become the player that I am just because of how much I was able to take in from that experience. Even though I'm hurt, I can't just sit there and sulk and be upset. I could do something about it, and I can learn from this, and I can learn, you know, why it happened. Were there things I could have done to prevent it? But I mean, kind of hard to prevent it. It's kind of just a natural thing. It's not a natural motion. But yeah, I mean, just grinded throughout my recovery process. Went to PT, did everything I needed to do day to day to get my arm straight again because my elbow wasn't fully straight. It was kind of bent. But I just had every day. Every day there was something that you got to do. It was eating right, watching baseball or something. Just to kind of like build yourself back up, and then you get to a point at the end of you start throwing again. You're like, like I feel great now. Like I'm stronger. I've learned a lot. Mentally, I'm strong. Like so it's kind of like taking that into next season. And I was kind of like not out for vengeance, but like out to like prove myself. I can come back from this. I can come back stronger because a lot of people say like it's not easy to come back from Tommy John surgery. There's a lot of blocks. There's a lot of roadblocks that you run into. During my throwing, I was like, my elbow was fine, but like other things started to hurt. I'm like, oh geez, like I can't just solely focus on the elbow. I have to strengthen my shoulder. I have to strengthen my forearms and everything. Everything ties into another. So going back into high school season now, about I want to say 8 months out of surgery. I was able to play position again. I was swinging. So I really felt like taking the surgery as like a stepping block in my baseball career, really helped me like kind of like persevere through an injury, learn more about myself, use all of that experience and all those hard times, just kind of like build myself back up to, a spot I never thought I could get to, and looking back now, like I said, it was truly a blessing in disguise because I learned so much about myself out of baseball that I, carry with me every day, going to, the small things, school, baseball, family, friend, like everything. There's so much you learn about yourself. So,
Dude, it's incredible just to hear that because statistic I always throw out to like athletes and parents and coaches is that only like there's like 15 to 20% of kids who got UCL reconstruction that are not going to be able to pitch again, right? So the success rate is around like 80% that we're looking at. Now we're looking at you being the success rate at 80%, but also being able to play in college at a high level and also get drafted. Like that make you like the top of the top, right? When it comes to statistically speaking. Now, what was the biggest struggle do you have during the whole UCL rehab? Like what was it like, getting back on the mount? Like how do you combat that whole thing? What was the biggest sticking point that you had to overcome?
I think patience was like the hardest thing to overcome because, you get back out on a mound and all you want to do is throw hard. And, and you can't, and it's a tough road. You get out back in the mound. It's like, all right, you got 8 pitches at 50%. It's like, really? Like, that's all I can do today? So I think it was like, all of that recovery, all of the program was like a very vital aspect of the recovery. It's because you can't do nothing and you can't do too much. You really have to like
Mhm.
stay specific to the schedule. So I just think the patience thing, being I was on a crutch in a cast for a while, and then then I could walk again, and then I was in the I got the cast off and I got the brace on. It's just
Mhm.
like, there's a lot of things that you can't do and you got to learn how to like work around it. But it's like at the same time, it's like you get so impatient, you can't do this. I have to use my left arm for everything, and then it's like once you get it off, it's like, well, I can't do other things that I normally used to do just because I have to like, be careful of my arm. So I just think that the patience aspect was something really hard to combat, especially, the recovery. It takes you about 9 to 10 months minimum if you're like moving really well, feeling great, just to get back to throwing, you know, a baseball. And then it's like
Yeah.
you get the throwing program. It's like another month and a half, 2 months till you're back to throwing off a mound again. It's like all that time, it's like you haven't thrown off a mound in 11 months.
Mhm.
So I'd say patience is definitely, the hardest aspect of that whole recovery process. But I think being able to learn how to do other things, like substitute things because I can't do this one thing, like kind of like helped me like learn, like find ways to work around it. Even though you're impatient, there's other things you can do to better yourself that's still doing the same thing, so yeah.
Dude, so obviously when you're going through this, you're kind of going through it alone. Like how do you end up getting like the support system that you need? Like who were there for you to help you like through the ups and downs, right? Because like rehab is never just linear; it's always ups and downs. So
Yeah.
on your downs day, like who were there for you?
Yeah. I mean, I'd definitely say my family, my parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, I'd say like they were my biggest support system. They understood the like how hard of a surgery it was to come back from. And they understood that also, like this is my dream. This is what I want to do. So, you're like hitting that roadblock, everybody kind of like chips in, my mom's always making me, food, just so I can, put, good stuff in my body to recover. My dad's, taking time out of his day, he gets back home from work. He's taking time out of his afternoon instead of resting. He's like, all right, we got to go throw or we got to go do this, like, so I feel like everybody played a small role in my road to recovery, and you got coaches reaching out, we got trainers, physical therapists, just putting on in all that time. So it was definitely something tough to go through by myself, but I had so many people, playing a small role in that. So I didn't feel like, I was really like all by myself. At the point, what surgery was tough. That's when I kind of felt like at my lowest level because I didn't know what the future meant for me. I didn't know
Mhm.
if I'd be able to throw again. I didn't know if I'd be able to throw as hard as I did again. But it's funny because you get back in the mound for your first time and you're just like, I got back and I was throwing 93, 95, 10 months out of surgery in game. And I was just like, like this is happening. This is real. Like, everyone who helped you, everyone who supported you, all the time that you put in the work, the past 10 months, it's brought you to now. So it's just like, it's just you come to realization, like you didn't just go through this, like you had other people going through it as well, and they were always there for you.
Yeah, dude, I love that. It seemed like that's why I love working with you, man. It seemed like every time you have an opportunity, you take that opportunity and you make it not only just about yourself, but the people who have been there for you,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So like each time you get an opportunity like this, actually to go play at the next level, like what who else are you doing it for, and what else keep driving you to keep moving forward?
I mean, this family. I mean, my parents take so much time out of their life and they're like, day to day just to like make sure that I'm in a good spot, that, everything's kind of like taken care for. Like, I don't really have to worry about like all these outer things. It's like, all right, like we got you, we fully support you. Like, you're going to do this. Like, this is your dream, but like, this is our dream for you too. Like, we want to see you succeed, and that goes also outside my parents. Like, my aunts and uncles and cousins, like they understand how big this is to me, and they understand like how much work I put in, and they're just always there supporting. I mean, my uncle introduced me to you. You know, that's like a big
Yeah.
thing to me. You know, it's like
Yep.
I think the connections and everything, and everybody kind of goes out of their way just to, make sure that, I'm in a good spot. I couldn't be more grateful for it.
That's great, man. Because I think that another thing that people don't understand, that if you're very competitive in baseball, you are traveling a lot. The
Yeah.
tournaments and everything, the flight, the hotel, all of that stuff, scheduling,
Yeah.
like renting a car to go to all these things.
Yeah. It's not an easy grind. It's something that you really have to be committed to. And, my parents made it happen. And then, I couldn't be more grateful for that, and they enjoy it too. It's not like it's a burden on them.
Yeah.
They love to travel. They love the games and everything. But yeah, it's been awesome. It's been an awesome experience.
Now, let's talk it through about you being in a very competitive school, and like Duke is a great academic program. A, like how do you decide which school you want to go to, and B, how do you manage the schedule of the student athletes?
Yeah. So when I first committed to Duke, I wasn't like Duke was my first school that offered me. I
Mm-hmm.
never really, to be honest with you, had like interest in Duke. Didn't really like ever cross my mind. I never really like understood what I was capable of.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows? Maybe I could have went to like an SEC school or whatever. But like best decision I could have ever made. I mean, the school is awesome. Just the atmosphere, the programs, the people I've met, and the connections I've made. It's just like kind of made me into the person I am today. Um, I couldn't have asked for anything better, even though, all these roadblocks I've hit, in my life, like I don't think I would want it any other way just because of the spot I'm in now. Like none of this, I don't think any of this happens if it goes any other way.
Mm-hmm.
So, but, as a student athlete, I think the biggest thing is time management. You got, for us, we practiced in the afternoon. So it was, you had all your classes in the morning, then you practiced for 2-3 hours, and then you got lift on some days, and then some days you're not getting out until 8 o'clock at night, and then you got to go home and do homework. So it's like kind of really getting your priorities straight and having a plan and attacking that plan and executing it every day sets you up for success because, it's, if you fall behind, you're not only are you going to fall behind in school, but you're going to fall behind in baseball too. Because you have so many other things. You don't want to go to practice and have to worry about a paper that you got to write that night
Mm-hmm.
or a test you got to study for tomorrow. So, when you set yourself up for success, you're not only setting yourself up for success in the classroom, but you're setting yourself up for success on the field too. So,
Mm-hmm.
and also when you have the time too, you can put in the extra time towards baseball too. So if you're not getting your priorities straight and managing your time well, it's kind of hard to be successful on the field as well. So
Mm-hmm. Now, what's your schedule like now? Now that you're like a fully professional athlete.
yeah, I mean, being back at school trying to finish my degree, I don't really have any other, like, I don't have to be at practice at a certain time. I don't have to go lift at this time. Like I have a more free schedule. So I've kind of like taken in like, all right, well, I'm gonna, obviously I'm gonna get my schoolwork done. I've had a very open schedule for baseball, or like the baseball training aspect. Like our strength trainer is awesome. He pretty much lets us go in and lift whenever we want. I go in the afternoon, I throw it right after that. So I kind of like knock those out back to back. And, it takes me 2.5 hours total right after classes. And then I get back home and then it's like, all right, well, I now I have this extra time to do the work and to, do other stuff that I enjoy, like as opposed to like, all right, I got to get all this stuff done now because I have practice and lift and all that. So it's been pretty cool, like having the freedom to kind of like choose when I want to do things, because I'm only here for the fall semester and all my, friends who got drafted are back and all my teammates are in my class are this is the last, semester I could spend with them. So I've been able to do a lot of things that like outside of baseball and school that I've been able to like enjoy. So the schedule's been pretty nice so far.
That's pretty awesome, man. So, hey, what has it been like now that you're back on campus, right? You see your old teammate, but clearly you're not on the team anymore. Like,
Yeah.
what's your role? How you been hanging out with them?
Yeah. So, I mean, also, I mean, our head coach has been awesome. Like, he tells us if you have access to the weight room, the training room, the field, like if you need anything, let me know. So, like, he's been awesome about it. Been able to come back here and kind of have like a lot of freedom in like what I want to do and what I want to do on a day to day basis. But I still I go throw during team practice. I kind of hang out with the guys and still feel like I'm part of the team, even though I'm not actually on the team. And I'm not staying at practice for the full 2-3 hours every day. But just being able to show up and kind of like go through my process every day. Even for the younger guys to like kind of like see me go to, and everybody asks questions, and I love when people ask me questions. I love helping out the younger guys too. So it's been awesome to like go back and kind of like help preach what our head coach preaches, and kind of like add in my own like like this is how I attack every day. This is how I plan, and execute. So it's been awesome to like be around the guys still, still like do things with them that I, did last year and the previous years before. So it's been awesome just to be around like the team, like be a part of like the chemistry of the team and kind of build up like what we had the past couple of years. And, they all look really good. And I think they're going to do really well this season.
That's awesome, man. Now, like what's it like now that you're part of like an organization that has awesome farm system that's going to train you and teach you the right way? Like what is something that you've learned so far since you've been with Cincinnati?
Yeah. I think the coolest thing about Cincinnati is everything is so structured and individualized. Like my program might look different from the other pitcher, but like they do so much like of the testing and like every guy is different. It's like I have my own plan of things that I need to work on, things that work well for me. Like they're so organized and structured. It's not like I'm always asking like, what do I need to do this day? What do I need to do that day? It's like literally I have my own plan. I follow it every day. I still talk to the trainer and the strength coach and the pitching coordinators. Just like they're not on top of you. They're just like, they're monitoring. Like, like how'd you feel today? Like, do you need help? Do you have any questions? Just like I don't really have to like worry about, anything else just besides like doing the stuff that they gave me to do every day. And I'm able to attack that. And, and I can see myself getting stronger and learning and getting better. It's been like super easy to like go through like an off season plan. So they've been awesome so far. I mean, they really have it like down pat. Everybody's got their own program and own plan, and it's just like it's been awesome so far.
Dude, I think this is one thing I always want to get across for all the younger athletes is that you need structure because structure creates freedom, right? You just go in
Yeah,
willy nilly and you take it one day at a time, which again, it's good to take one day at a time, but if you have no idea how you're going to plan your week, like you're not going to be able to attack when you're on the mound or on the field, right?
yeah, yeah. And I think the biggest thing too is they buy so much trust into you. Like
Mhm.
they allowed me to come back to school like a couple weeks earlier than they had normally planned because after I was in low A for the season after it ended, all the guys went back to Arizona to play for like another 2-3 weeks.
Mhm.
And I told them, I was like, listen, like, I would love to go back and finish my degree, but like, I can only go right now. I can't go back to Arizona. And they're like, you know what? Like, you have a plan. We gave you this plan. They build trust in you. Like, like we know he's going to go back to school. He's going to get his stuff done. He's not just going to go back just to go back to school. So I think that's also another thing. Like the fact that they trust me to come back and work on myself with the plan they gave me, it gives me a lot of confidence in like the program itself and how they develop guys. So that's been awesome so far.
Dude, that's awesome, man. I think it's great to see, people treating you like an adult, right? Because you act like an adult. So that's
Yeah,
the biggest thing. If you don't act like an adult first, there's no way people got to take you seriously.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah,
I mean, if you can show that, it's much easier for them to be like, oh yeah, absolutely. Like here's what you need to do. Like see you in spring training. So
dude, That's awesome,
Yeah.
man. I mean, what a journey you have so far, and I know a lot of kids gonna take so many things away from this podcast. Last question before I let you go, bro. So, if you can have a conversation with the junior version of you that just tore his UCL, what were some advice and some pep talk you would give your former self?
I would probably say like like tell myself, even though I learned it as I went through all this, like kind of everything happens for a reason. Kind of like instead of just like I was talking about before, like instead of feeling sorry for yourself and be like, oh, like I'm stuck in the situation. Like a lot of guys would love to be in your situation right now because they know what they can do with that. So we kind of like dig into that. Instead of just like being like, oh, whatever. Be like, no, like this is an opportunity for me to grow exponentially. Like outside of baseball too, you learn so much about yourself physically, mentally, your relationships, connections, like just there's so many things that you can learn just from an injury outside of just the physical portion of it. So if I had to go back to junior year, I would tell myself like don't let this hold you back. Like you have so much growth and so much to expand on it, like in baseball and life and everything. Like just go for it. Like don't regret anything. Don't hold back. Like just go for it.
Dude,
So
great advice. So, uh, where can people find you, man?
I got my Instagram is I think it's Jimmy Romano underscore JIMMYROMANO_. Find me on Instagram, or sure you probably just look up my name or something like that.
Yeah.
Something will pop up. But yeah, no, definitely check out my Instagram or something like that. If you have any questions, feel free to DM me or something like that. I'm open to answering.
No, we'll definitely tag you on that, man. Hoping in the future when you come back to Jersey, obviously, we're hoping you can host some sort of camp for the younger athletes for them to,
Oh,
hear your
that'd be awesome.
story. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that would be great, man. I think someone like you that went through all the ups and downs, I think to be able to lead the next generation of like New Jersey athlete, I think that would be extremely impactful. Because I always say like Jersey have so many good athletes, and we don't get enough credit for it.
they do. Even just like even my like I grew up in a small town, but I feel like I know so many people who just just incredible athletes. If you come on to play pro sports or college sports or something like that. Jersey breeds a lot of good athletes.
No, that's 100%. I think it's got to be in all the sandwiches.
Yeah, yeah.
That's it, man. So listen,
Gotta
bro,
be the
I'm
bread.
looking. No, I appreciate you taking your time to have this conversation with me. Looking forward to seeing you when you're back home. Get some stuff done off season. So again, man, thank you so much for your time, bro. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This has been a blessing. Grateful for it. Thank you.
Of course. All right, man. I'll see you when you get back home.
Take care, Natty. See ya.